I'm Carrie Jackson, and tonight rescue workers have the difficult task of looking for survivors following a violent volcano eruption in Colombia. We'll have the latest. Plus, President Reagan shares his thoughts on the upcoming Geneva summit meeting with Soviet leader Gorbachev. It's all next on The Update. Coming next on Newscenter 13 Update, a surprise volcanic eruption in Colombia could be the deadliest in this hemisphere in decades. And at least 20,000 people are feared dead. Plus, we'll hear from famed Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal about his work and what will be done when he is gone.
And in tonight's special report, Date Rape, we go to one high school where students did their own study on dating violence. Bob Gregory's AccuWeather looks to the weekend.
And Don Hine has Pacers highlights, all next.
It's 11 o'clock. Parents, do you know where your children are?
Tonight, live from the News Center of Indiana, this is Newscenter 13 Update with Cameron Harper, Carrie Jackson, Bob Gregory's exclusive AccuWeather, and Don Hine Sports.
Good evening, everyone. 25,000 people are believed dead after a violent eruption of a volcano in South America that has been dormant for 500 years. Nevado del Ruiz, near Bogota, Colombia, blew just before 11 last night, melting its snowcap, hurling scalding mud and water down into the valley below. Entire villages are covered. One survivor says it's easier to count the living than the dead. They were warned, though.
It's my strong sense that people were made well aware of the hazard. As best I can tell, though, the eruption has occurred before these plans and activities could be fully implemented.
The people here farm cotton, coffee, and rice. Some survivors were found clinging to trees or on roofs that hadn't been buried by mud. Rescue efforts were hampered because the roads and 5 bridges leading to the town of Armero were destroyed. The death toll could reach 70,000.
Well, when there's a natural disaster like the volcano eruption, emergency relief is needed. But that type of relief is creating a disaster of another kind. The budget of the American Red Cross is $13 million in the red. This year, 5 hurricanes hit the U.S. mainland. It's only the 3rd time this century that has happened. The Red Cross has committed $48 million for disaster relief operations since July. And in order to continue helping victims of fires and floods and tornadoes, the Red Cross needs money. The local chapter is committed to raise $150,000 toward a $20 million national campaign effort. Carrie?
After midnight tonight, no more babies can be legally delivered by nurse midwives in Indiana. Their malpractice insurance expires, and the companies are refusing to reinsure them. That's leaving some 30 expectant mothers scrambling for doctors at the last minute. They were hoping to deliver with midwives and as little medical intervention as possible at Methodist Hospital. The midwives only deliver babies to women with no history of birthing problems or risks. There are 4 licensed midwives in Indiana. They have appealed to Insurance Commissioner Harry Eakin for help, but so far nothing has been done. A Morgan County jury says the Brown County Inn in Nashville must pay a 35-year-old woman $10 million. The personal injury award may be the largest in Indiana history. The money will go to Catherine Schmock, who remains in a rehabilitation center in New York. She suffered both physical and mental injuries from a car accident 2 years ago. Schmock's car was hit by John Jackson, who had been drinking at the Brown County Inn for 5 hours before leaving. Jackson wasn't named in that lawsuit. Despite Schmock's injuries, doctors say she delivered a healthy baby boy about 5 months later. The Brown County Inn has 60 days to act on an appeal.
A new survey tonight shows an optimistic outlook for businesses in the Midwest, and that could mean bigger paychecks and better benefits for you. Surveys from more than 2,500 employers around the country show Indianapolis white-collar professional workers will get bigger pay raises next year than employees in most other cities. The average projected salary increase is 6.3% in Indianapolis. For the rest of the country, it's 5.8%. The nationwide trend is for pay hikes to get smaller.
Going back to the 70s when we had high inflation, high salary increases, what we're going to have in 1986 for a 35-year-old professional is the lowest salary increase expectation that they've had in their working career.
Now keep in mind that pay raises are greater than inflation, so your buying power is still increasing. You can also look forward to more health care plans for less money from your employer.
He's going on a mission of peace, but tonight President Reagan offered little hope that his discussions next week in Geneva with Soviet leader Gorbachev will bring a breakthrough in the arms race. It's been 6 years since an American president met with a Soviet leader. The president says he's going to Geneva knowing there are differences between the two countries. But he says despite those differences, the two sides must prevent violence. He's hoping a new agreement will help.
We're proposing the broadest people-to-people exchanges in the history of American-Soviet relations. Exchanges in sports and culture, in the media, education, and the arts. Such exchanges can build in our societies thousands of coalitions for cooperation and peace. Governments can only do so much. Once they get the ball rolling, they should step out of the way.
The president did defend his Star Wars research program, which the Soviets strongly oppose. Reagan says he would like both countries to cut back on weapons and move to non-nuclear defense systems that threaten no one.
Is Nazi war criminal Joseph Mengele dead? A group called Candles is holding its own inquest this week in Terre Haute. The group is made up of children of survivors of the Auschwitz death camp, and they heard testimony from people who say they've seen the infamous Angel of Death more recently than 1979, when he's supposed to have died in Brazil. Also at the inquest is the former Israeli ambassador to Paraguay. He says Mengele is dead, but blames famed Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal's misinformation in 1967 that Mengele was in Paraguay for the fact Mengele was never found in Brazil. At the same time, Simon Wiesenthal was in Bloomington tonight, where he disputed the charge that he failed in the Mengele case. Don Ellison was at IU tonight and talked with Wiesenthal.
The famed hunter of Nazi war criminals brought his message of the Holocaust to Indiana University, both as a history lesson and as a warning.
I believe when this was possible in a such cultural and intelligent country like Germany, can be possible in any country of the world.
At a news conference before his speech, Wiesenthal said that he's sure that Joseph Mengele is dead and that the so-called inquest in Terre Haute is misguided.
We are receiving every day letters from people. They saw him in Switzerland, they saw him in Jamaica, they saw him in Spain, and so on and so on. And this will not end maybe in a few months or in a few years.
Next month, Simon Wiesenthal will be 77 years old. So I asked about the day in the very near future when the war criminals will themselves be dead.
The criminals will die, the witness will die, I will die. But how long the two generations are alive, this question must remain as an open question.
And of his life's work and the attention he's focused on the Holocaust?
If we will not do this, then the millions die for nothing. Absolutely.
Don Ellison, Newscenter 13, update.
Coming up, we'll talk to people who are opposed to warning labels on albums.
Plus, the lines are forming for John Cougar's Mellencamp.
With news for Bloomington, Anderson, and all of Central Indiana, this is Newscenter 13 Update. An Indianapolis mother who admitted to allowing men to have sex with her 6-year-old daughter was sentenced to 15 years in prison today. Greta Natamra took the stand in her own defense today. She told Judge John Tranberg that when she performed sex acts on her daughter and 4-year-old son, she did not know she was doing anything wrong. She pleaded guilty to 2 counts of child molesting and neglect. 3 men charged with molesting her children are scheduled to go to trial this winter. Natamra would be eligible for parole in about 7 years. Bill?
Well, this week we've been focusing on the shocking problem of date rape. Tonight, in the final segment of our 3-part series, reporter Denise Lee takes you to a high school in Columbus, Indiana, where students did their own study on dating violence.
But nobody likes to tease either.
Guys do just as much teasing as the girls do.
You're listening in on a senior class discussion on dating violence. This class on marriage and family relations decided to survey over 200 seniors at the school. They found that 37% of the females and 16% of the males had been kissed against their will. 15% of the females and 5% of the males reported being forced into sex. Overall, the teens say dating violence is a problem that people are just beginning to talk about.
Okay, males want to be macho and the females have a tendency to be passive.
And that's where we get into problems, and exploitation happens to be in relationships.
IUPUI clinical psychologist Dr. Elgin Baker says there is a relationship between date rape and the sexual stereotypes associated with men and women.
Men are frequently brought up to believe that their role in sexual behavior is to be the aggressor, that the woman's role is to be passive and maybe even to resist, to act that she doesn't want it.
Baker says men use both verbal and physical coercion to force a woman into sex.
If we're talking simply about those situations where a woman is pushed, perhaps persuaded forcefully to go beyond where she feels comfortable, I think that's a situation that is very, very common.
Baker says the answer to the problem rests with teaching kids how to communicate, freeing men and women from sexual stereotypes, and showing women they have the right to be assertive and the right to say no.
I just want to make sure they're not forced in any situation that they don't want to be forced into.
Denise Lee, News Center 13 update.
The government is getting too involved in the censorship business. That's the opinion of the Indiana Civil Liberties Union and some record store owners. Testimony from rock stars was called for recently when concerned mothers lobbied for labeling on records and tapes. They claim lyrics are promoting drugs, sex, and violence. The record industry agreed to the voluntary use of a warning label on offending material or printing of lyrics on album covers. But the executive director of the ICLU, Michael Gradison, says First Amendment rights are eroding.
The fact of the matter is that almost all of these records that are popular with the young people who buy them, the rock videos and the records are popular. You'll see on television, in case of rock videos, and you'll hear on the radio. I mean, the records don't sell. They'll say the airplay to support them. And then the FCC steps in. So really there is a control of sorts.
Now, Gradison says parents don't go shopping for records with the kids, so the labeling won't work. And a record shop owner says labeling may have the opposite effect of the mother's desires.
Rated X or in a brown paper bag, the sales will skyrocket. It's in effect showing them something that they didn't know before, and they're going to line up like crazy to buy them.
Crockett doesn't object to the increased sales, but he does object to censorship and that standpoint.
John Cougar Mellencamp was born and raised in Indiana, and that's just one reason he's got so many fans locally. He'll be here next month for 2 concerts at Market Square Arena, and tonight the lines are forming to get some of those precious tickets. The concert is scheduled for December 15th and 16th. Tickets actually go on sale tomorrow morning. These people have a long wait. Mellencamp helped organize the Farm Aid concert earlier this month.
Well, Bob Gregory's up next with his exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Did he say something about sunshine?
I think he did. We can mow our lawn. Then later in sports, Don Hines says the Dolphins will start a new linebacker.
With news for Connorsville, Greencastle, and all of Central Indiana, this is News Center 13 Update.
Bob Gregory's weather carries the seal of approval from the American Meteorological Society.
Cameron Harper is feeling a little under the weather, and I don't blame him. Bill Foster is sitting in.
Yeah, I don't know if it's on a cereal box where they have the line for the commercial, another day without sunshine.
Right.
Well, we're about as soggy as a bowl of cereal that's had the milk in it for a long time. We thought earlier tonight we'd get a break in this weather pattern and some sunshine tomorrow. No go so far. We may have to wait till the 1st of next week. This is the way the weekend is going to look. It's going to begin on the rather wet and windy side for Saturday's football games. On Sunday, though, we're expecting the showers to have moved eastward, so there will be some improvement. Let's take a look at what's going on out there right now. Under overcast skies officially, it is 46 degrees at the airport. Here in the Weather Center downtown, we're holding on to 47. Relative humidity at 89%. The winds out of the north at 8 miles an hour. The barometric pressure, that's been steady, and that's our high point for the day, by the way, at 30.33. Our high-low combination, 64, occurred at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the low, so far, present reading of 46. Latest pictures from space, not a great deal of change in the satellite map either. Vast area of clouds and moisture all the way through. It's this area that's going to be picked up by a stronger storm and zoom northward. Here's what it looks like on our weather map, though. As this thing builds some more, this is the low-pressure cell we're talking about. Got a little little bit of drying, but some showers have picked up here tonight, indicating an upper air thing, and as this moves eastward, the storm will move up to our west. More rains for us, record equaling or setting high temperatures in the east today. Out in the western part of the country, Ely, Nevada, and even Jack Frost will go down to San Diego tonight. As we begin the day tomorrow, then low pressure cell northern Arkansas. By tomorrow night, it and the showers will start moving northward, so the rain will come back in and then be around for us on Saturday. Thermometer will be on the cool side with the 40s and 50s throughout most of the state. These are the specific numbers, and an umbrella would be nice to have. Now, my AccuWeather forecast for us: clouds, chilly overnight, 42 will be the low. Considerable cloudiness, cool again, high of 50 degrees. We'll have a northeast wind from 7 to 14 miles an hour. Friday night, then, the rain returns. Low around 49, and then it may actually go up some. Saturday, it'll be on the mild side, 60 degrees, if that's any consolation with the wind and rain that will be around. And then a mixture-type day. Some clouds and sunshine for us. 52 degrees on Sunday. Could be a sunnier day Monday, the sunniest we may have seen so far this month. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, no sunglasses, lots of clouds, and 44.
I thought you ought to know that when he goes down to California, that's Hubert Frost.
Hubert Frost? Right. That could be.
Rather
All
than
right.
Jack Frost. Hey, we'll talk with Steve Alford tonight about, well, he wasn't shooting well the other night, and he talks to us about that.
All right, Don Hines back with sports, so stay with us.
Don Hine is here. How are the Pacers shooting tonight?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Our Pacers are definitely consistent. They look good and lose on the road. They look good and lose at home. Vern Fleming with 20 points and 7 assists, but Cleveland still wins by 8 tonight. World B. Free came alive in the second half. He was the catalyst and equaled Fleming's 20. Herb Williams continues to play well, uses the body nicely here for the bump and hoop. Terrence Stansberry hit his first 4, goes coast to coast on this one and had 16. And Steve Stepanovich with that good lefty hook. He had 23, but it's Cleveland 112 to 104. There's a little hook by Stipo. IU and Purdue basketball always similar in the sense that team basketball and not individual play is the hallmark. But that having been said, I'll also say that the Hoosiers need the scoring of Newcastle's Steve Alford to be successful. And against the Czechs last Saturday, well, he started out cold.
I was a little excited. I think the team was excited. It took us all a little bit to get going. I really got off to a slow start, and being the leader I'm supposed to be and the captain, it puts a big burden on the team when your captain gets off of that kind of start, and I think it did put a burden on the team. But I got back in, got a second chance, and things went a little bit better from there.
What did Coach say on the bench when he took you out?
Well, I made a couple bad defensive mistakes, and he let me know that if I'm going to make those kind of mistakes, then I can sit next to him.
The first female Globetrotter, Lynette Woodard, will be getting her share of pine time until she can get a specialty with the Clowns of Round Ball. She's an excellent straight player, having captained the U.S. Women's Olympic team. But last night in Spokane at her debut, she scored 7 in less than 2 quarters of play. In college at the University of Kansas, she averaged 26. Here's a little mind blower for you. You're down 138 pins one day, and the next, well, if you're Indy's Mike